if there's any leverage that I've created for myself in this industry, it's around me being a coach, not a business owner. I'm a lot more respected as a coach probably than a business owner. We're going to offer you a 12-month membership as soon as you come in, whether you come in on a trial or whatever, because with all of my integrity, I just believe that I can help you more if you're in our system for a year. The more intellectual you are, and our world is full of a lot of intellectuals, they don't seem to understand that. It's like nobody cares about your degree. They care way more about how you look. And if you can leverage that and be a walking example, sales will be a lot easier.
Hello and welcome to this week's Gym World Worldwide. I am your host, John Franklin. Joined with me, as always, is my co-founder and co-host, Mateo Lopez, coming off of a debaucherous Halloween evening. And
so debaucherous.
No, it wasn't. Well, for my kids, it was. And with us today is a veteran, a grizzled veteran, a guy who knows everybody in the industry, a guy who should have been on this podcast long ago, but we have him here today for you.
A guy who should be doing this podcast instead of us.
Probably. Yeah, he should be the host. We're going to give it to him at the end of it. He doesn't know yet. So with us this week is Andy McCloy of BCI Performance. How you doing?
I'm great, man. That's a pretty solid introduction, both music and words. So I appreciate that. And my Halloween was equally debaucherous. I was stuck in a torrential downpour with my kid for 3 hours, who was very committed to trick-or-treating no matter what. So,
oh, wow.
My kids don't have a lot of sugar, and my wife just took off the limiter, and they were just popping. It's 8:30 at night. Mateo rides his golf cart past my house, and I was like, those screams you hear, that's my child right now, just trying to get it all out of his body. So
yeah.
Didn't have a lot of alone time yesterday. But it's not about me. It's about you. Tell us a little bit about BCI and how you've been in the game as a gym owner for 23 years. That might be a Gym World Worldwide world record.
Well, I'll start with the first. At BCI, we work with athletes that are 7 years old all the way up to the professional levels. We help athletes get lean, strong, and more explosive so they can stand out amongst their peers and impress their coaches. Our main target market is 7 years old to 18, but we do deal with quite a few professional athletes and have a good collegiate program as well. That's one side of the house, and all those programs are built around the science and research of long-term athletic development. So each program is geared towards a specific maturation window that children are entering. And then on the adult side of the house, we work with adults that are 35 to 55 to help them get lean, strong, and more resilient so they can live life without physical limits. So we have a small group personal training program that is kind of our core offer, but we give away some large group metabolic stuff that we haven't had the heart to phase out, but we no longer really enroll people in that program. So we have a combination of large group and small group as our main core offer on the adult side.
So we've said you're 23 years gym owner, but you've been in the game for longer.
Well, it's been 24, 27 years like me doing stuff in this industry, but I started in the Washington, D.C. area working for a company called HBI Fitness, Health, Body, and Image. I was just kind of a knucklehead kid that accidentally ran into a good mentor. That when I moved to Alabama, I just kind of arrogantly started a business. And that started at a local Gold's Gym as a trainer. And within kind of the first year, I took over that gym and had an exclusivity deal with that gym and then set it up with 2 other Riviera fitness centers. That was kind of how I got involved first.
I'm very curious about this period of the story. Like, were you when you, because I've heard about, and maybe for the listeners who haven't, what exactly did you do inside the Gold's Gym? Did you sell your kind of program to other coaches, or were you training people?
So when I worked at HBI Fitness, the guy that I met had an exclusivity deal with all the Gold's Gyms owned by John and Kirk Galliani. So he owned all the Gold's Gyms in the Washington, D.C. area, and HBI contracted out of there to provide the personal training services. They were the sole provider, and there was a revenue share that they had with each gym. So when I first got down here to Alabama, I walk in this gym, and there's heavy bodybuilding influence, but there's legitimately people doing like dance aerobics. There was a guy doing like trampoline style training. And I just remember thinking like, man, things felt a little antiquated. Like they weren't doing a lot of things I was seeing in the Washington, D.C. area. And I started to have this idea, young, 20 years old, you're reading books, you think you know things. And I'm like, I don't think this customer base has any idea what this gym stands for from a training perspective. And through conversation with a client of mine that was a lawyer who knew the owner, I was like, I want to present to this guy the two things that I think are working against him. And one is that there was no unified training system that people believed in, and that he was making zero money other than the $200 a month in rent that like 6 of us were paying. So I thought I could solve that problem, and it would be advantageous for me. So I just took a big swing at it, and it worked out pretty good.
And was your mentor the one training you to do this? Like, or you just saw the opportunity and knew you need to get a piece of it, piece of something somehow to, make it as a trainer in the business?
Yeah, I would say there was people guiding me along, but nobody that was like a really good mentor at that point. That was just really kind of just being a young kid that was kind of ignorant of how difficult that would be and what it would require. I had a young child that, man, I needed to feed. I knew that working in some other normal, typical job was not going to be it for me. Plus, I was kind of virtually unemployable. I had my first kid at 16 years old. I was on my own shortly thereafter. I didn't have a college degree. And I was just like, man, I'm going to make this happen. And I did have a girl that I was dating at that time who was the chief financial officer for a big government contracting company. And she did give me a lot of, I don't want to say advice, but she gave me a lot of confidence because I knew I had somebody that would help me with the books and, could answer questions and not call me a dummy. And,
tell you how to use PowerPoint.
Yeah. So you heard that story? Yeah.
We do some research from time to time on our guests.
Yeah. That's good. My nap.
But for those who haven't heard you before.
Yeah. So the way I'm training this guy, Rich Marsden. Rich was a lawyer for Motorola at that time. And I'm just kind of telling him about everything that I want to do. And I'm excited that Eric had done. And he was like, man, well, I know Bill. And I was like, who's Bill? And he was like, he's the guy that owns the gym. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that guy, owned anything. And he was like, yeah, man, just put together a PowerPoint. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. I didn't have it in me to tell him I had no idea really what that was. So that night I went to a bar and a restaurant and I sat down and I forgot how, this was 20 some years ago, but I had got some insight into that. Like PowerPoint was like multiple slides, like a slide deck type of deal or a storyboard. So I just remember asking the bartender for the napkins and I just started kind of like writing things on napkins. And eventually when I saw Rich, I was, hey man, here's my PowerPoint. And he gave it to his secretary to actually dump into PowerPoint for me because he was impressed that I actually took some action. Then I got in front of Bill and made the presentation, and he was very open to the idea of making more money. So I don't think he cared about a unified training system. But once I kind of presented some projections on what I thought we could do, which were totally made up, by the way, I'm just pulling things out of anywhere. He was like, well, let's give it a shot. Yeah, it worked pretty good. It went good.
It's fine. All projections are made up. So,
100%.
As I'm sure now, you were spot on.
Yeah, I was accurate.
And so were you like, just paying the bills and struggling to get by during this point, or were you making a pretty decent living, all things considered?
I did pretty well right out the gate. Like I wish I had a little bit more of a hard scrabble story there. But I did pretty good right out the gate, man. And, there was about a month or two of me like, all right, we got to make some money here to pay these bills. But after that, it's like things just kind of caught on. And I just think I was so passionate about this stuff. And I was from a different area, like the expert from afar, but I really wasn't an expert at all. I was just a passionate young kid that was reading more than most people. I was plugged into a lot of interesting stuff. Like, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember the influence Gary Gray had on the industry from a movement-based approach. But like, I'm reading Gary Gray and I'm reading Westside Barbell. And, so at that point, if you were reading Gary Gray, you're probably a rehab guy. If you're reading Westside Barbell, you're probably just a power lifter. And I was kind of in the middle of all that. And really the integration of a lot of like Westside principles into the sport performance world. So I was fortunate to come into the industry at that time and get plugged into the people that I thought were, the best of the best.
So you mentioned passion. Is there anything else that separates you from most people who enter the industry and shovel shit for 5 to 10 years before they start making any real money?
Yeah, I just think commitment. I think too many people build in a back door, and they are influenced by mom and dad or an uncle or a friend. It's like, oh, when are you going to get a real job? Or, and then when they run into that friction, kind of the doubt in the stories in the back of their head, overtake them. And for me, I've said this so much now that I almost don't want to keep saying it because I'm beating it to death. But for me, plan B was always to make plan A work. Like that was just the only thing. You know, for me, when I moved to Alabama, it was life or death, man. Bad things were going to happen to me just because of what I was involved in and how I was spending my time. So when I came out here, it was like, I have to save my life. And when I saw this opportunity, it was like, okay, this is what I got to do. I got to do this for me, and I got to do this for this kid, and I'm going to figure it out. Call it ignorance, dumb luck, whatever. Just kind of left foot in front of the right has always worked for me. You know, run into an obstacle, just, run through it, and it'll be okay.
Well, I think the other thing that separates you too is like, I've heard you talk about like just this constant pursuit of knowledge and honing your craft, especially you're talking about just like reading, following these strength trainers and early on. And you were early, I feel like, in the like blogosphere and the strength training forum like world. Why was it important to you to like physically travel to some of these gyms you were like reading about and hearing about? And like, do you think that's important for gym owners to do today?
I mean, I do. I think it's important to have perspective of what the day-to-day operations really look like, because your perception is often skewed by the aura or persona of the person that you've met. So for me, when I was able to go visit certain gyms and see like, oh, wow, this person's a human. And, oh, everybody in here does not do every exercise absolutely perfect. I can see that this is not the perfect program. It was like, okay, all right, man, this is just another human being doing good things. So what has really worked for him or them, right? And there's quite a few people that I had my eye on as like a representation of what I wanted to create, a standard. And the common denominator was education. And just because I didn't have a traditional education background, that insecurity was really gnawing at me. It was like, I don't want anyone to ask me, like, what school did I go to? Or I just want them to assume. And so I just consumed myself with everything that I could get my hands on. And that stuck. That is the thing that helped me actually learn how to run a business. Like I didn't have any idea how to run a business. I jumped out the window and started doing good. But I realized very quickly that I had to like really be a good coach first, or nobody was really going to respect me. I couldn't like build a foundation of a business, like a body of work. So I started there, and everything that I did to become a respectable coach, I just realized later on, like I can apply the same thing to business. It's the same thing. It's like, who are the best people? What are the resources I need to be plugged into? What are the big principles that I need to be aware of? And then how do I develop an understanding of that relative to the contextual differences and what it looks like in a gym versus, a coffee shop or, whatever.
So it sounds like it came from a place of, needing to prove yourself, a place of insecurity.
Yeah. And I say that all the time. And I really think that it was a deep level of insecurity and fear. And I think when you're young, that looks like ambition. So I think, a lot of older people saw these qualities in me, and they saw that I was trying hard. I'm working long, hard hours. I just kept leaning into that. And again, like, I don't think I was aware that it was insecurity and fear then. I think we kind of create these own like hero stories, right? But in hindsight, it was very much insecurity and fear. And now as an adult, I've learned like that's okay. Like when you've got some insecurities and fear, there's an opportunity to fill in that gap, really lean into that.
So how did we transition to owning your own space and what BCI is today?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we really, after leaving the gym, there was some periods of the Gold's Gym, there was periods of contracting out of schools and gyms and all types of opportunity. Got hooked up with a Belarusian Olympic tennis player and flying all over the country in private jets, training a pro tennis player and a junior USTA player. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. But if I were to say the one thing that shifted my mind in how I had to look at my business, it was that I got full custody of my daughter when she was about 13 years old. I got joint custody of her at 3. And then, the next 10 years, it was very much like a game plan to get custody of her. When I did get custody of her, I realized I couldn't put in the time to being the type of dad I wanted to be. I'm working all the time. And I was doing fine financially. I built a respectable enough business for the court to think I was a stable enough parent to take care of my kid. But that business had completely trapped me, and I really did not have time for her at all. It was built around my name, my back. Even though the letters BCI existed, it was Andy's Gym. And I just said, I've got to figure this out. I really started applying a lot of the stuff that I had already learned, but I just wasn't putting into action. And then, just hiring coaches, hiring mentors, connecting with other people. And then over time, just really got a hold of it. One of the things I've been talking a lot about is this coaching first approach. And I think it's that so many people want to get past that phase. It's like they don't want to coach on the floor. They want to get right into the owning the gym. And I just don't know if we would be where we are if I didn't spend years, coaching and training people and developing a name for myself. Because now when I hired coaches, they were aware of that. There was some significance to be attached to what we had already created. And I think that's helped us a ton.
So at what point did you have your own location? Like how deep into the journey were you?
So I guess it's like 15 years, 14 years, something like that when we opened the current location that we're in now.
So you'd already been coaching and building these programs in the community, right?
Yeah, in the community, in gyms, in schools. I started the first ever speed camps in this whole area. Sport performance training wasn't even a thing, really back then. I mean, it was becoming a thing, but we were really first to market in that area as far as camps and clinics. And I waited about 3 years. I was ready to open a facility. I don't think I've ever even talked about this, but a good mentor of mine, I was training him one day and he asked me if I had heard of this place called D1. And I said, never heard of them. And he was like, oh, well, they're coming to Jones Valley, which is kind of a nicer area here. I said, oh, okay. They ended up reaching out to me. Actually, they were trying to hire me to run it, and they heard about me type of deal. I remember going to Kevin, and I was like, man, they got some juice. I mean, they've got big names behind them. They got money behind them. I went up to their Tennessee location and met with Will, the guy that started the company. He said to me, well, you got two choices, man. He said, you can do what you've been planning on doing and just head up, compete with them, understanding that they've got a brand and, they've got big names behind them. He said, or you can wait till the newness wears off. That hurt a little bit because I was ready to make a move. He's never given me bad advice. So I decided to wait, and the timing of when I opened things up was really perfect. I heard they're actually coming back to our town, but they eventually went out of business, years ago. I did hear they're coming back.
When was that? So you waited. So now when we're opening.
So if it would have been 15 years ago when we opened, add another 3 years onto that. So I guess, 18 years ago was probably when they came here. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to wait it out and go from there.
And when you opened your doors, were you like, is this a situation where you're just packed, like you're bursting at the seams, or was it?
I mean, well, relative to what I could handle. Yeah. I mean, we opened the door profitable with full client roster, and it was really just athletes at that point. And then I guess maybe a year and a half in, started to think about the idea of bringing back adults, somewhere around there. I've had a lot of head trauma, man. All those years trying to figure out all that is a little difficult for me math-wise, but.
Well, I kind of have a question about that because it is clear from your website that you have two services. You have these two tracks, and it kind of seems like two businesses. Like you train youth athletes and you train adults. And having spent more time with gym owners on this podcast and just in general from the sports performance world and the Perform Better ecosystem and all that stuff, I'm realizing we were really, at least I was pretty bad at training comparatively. We do very little compared to you guys. And I guess this is a long-winded way. You trained kids who went to the NFL, when they were kids till then they went to the NFL. So if you have that level of training expertise and those accolades behind you, I feel like you can just attract any youth athlete with ease. And then parents will pay you whatever you want. So why did you transition back to adults, I guess?
Yes, we have the majority of the market share when it comes to athletes, and people do, I think of us first. But I recognized around that time it's I wanted to build a bigger business. I didn't want it to just be built around my name with athletes, and I think that was the problem. Is I felt like it was going to be easier to build a business of trainers that wanted to work with adult fitness clients than it would be to just replace myself on the athlete side. So once we started building the adult fitness side, there was also some other, benefits to where it kind of smooths out the seasonal nature of working with athletes. And you started seeing some other benefits there. Although that's not something that we've dealt with as much as other people. We've always taken a kind of a top-down sales approach where we're going to offer you a 12-month membership as soon as you come in, whether you come in on a trial or whatever, because with all of my integrity, I just believe that I can help you more if you're in our system for a year. And then we downsell from there. But the vast majority of our athletes always trained with us year round. And we have had kids go from 8, 9 years old to, well, right now there's 2 guys, a guy at USC and a guy at Texas A&M that started with us at like 8, 9 years old. There's a guy with the Panthers that started with us at like 11 years old. There's another guy with the Panthers started with us about 13 years old. I think we've had 14 kids that grew up in our program that have gone on to the NFL. Yeah. Bunch of that stuff. Hundreds of Division I athletes. This is where I'm an awful marketer and sales person, but we've done a lot of cool stuff.
Having gotten to know a lot of people in this realm, I can see why the CrossFit trend was absolutely infuriating, because you just have people like Matteo just
That's
opening
part
up
of what
a
I was
door,
getting at.
200 members right off the bat. Everyone's paying more than they're paying for group training over there. Really didn't appreciate it until like the last year or so, just how ridiculous that moment in time was.
It was wild. I mean, I just remember, I don't know if I've ever shared this, but I remember when I first learned about CrossFit, it was, maybe 2004-ish, something like that. And the only reason I remember that is because I was at a USAW Olympic weightlifting deal. The certification is still in the gym, and I think it says 04. But I'm sitting next to this guy. He was from Scottsdale, Arizona. He was the fitness director for like the fire department or something. And him and the head guy teaching it start talking about CrossFit. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he was like, well, I'll send you all the journals. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, I'd never heard of it. And I start reading these journals and I'm like, what? Like, this is in contrast to everything I know and believe to be true. And I wasn't young enough at that time to probably even appreciate that movement and what was happening. I just wanted to be like, go away. This is in contrast to everything I've been studying and believe in. And yeah, and it was a wild time. I remember, one of the first ever CrossFits, I believe, ever in the country actually opened here in Huntsville. And that guy, Russell, I'm forgetting Russell's last name, but Russell worked for HQ for a long time. He was a local guy. I know he's kind of has a polarizing personality to a degree from what I understand. But
in CrossFit, no polarizing personalities.
He was always good guy to me. I will say that. He was always solid by me.
Hey, gym owners, are you looking for a way to generate more leads, close more sales, and increase client retention? Introducing Kilo. We are a software company that gives gym owners the tools they need to increase revenue and run a successful gym. With Kilo, you get a beautifully designed website to capture more leads, an integrated marketing automation platform to increase sales, and our gym management software, so you can add new client memberships, process payments, and organize your class schedule. If you're ready to upgrade your gym management software, book a call at usekilo.com.
So let's fast forward a little bit and talk about where you're at today. Give us a rundown. We talked about the two sides. So you do adult training, which is primarily small group, and then you do a lot of athlete work. So break down like what percentage of the business is athletes, what percentage is adults, and how you package and price services on both sides.
Yeah, we're almost 50-50 at this point. We might be 53 in one direction, 47 in the other, but we're almost 50-50, and that's been very intentional with a focus on really just growing the adult side. The athlete side has kind of stayed where it's at without a lot of push to do that. On the athlete side, we have 3 different programs: the Development and Fundamentals program, which is that development and fundamentals window of long-term athletic development. And then we have our middle school program that we call Acceleration, which is for that like learn to train phase of long-term athletic development. And then we have our high school program that we call our Elite program, that is really like the train to compete window. All of those programs, we use what we call a general to specific continuum of planning. So the way that we recommend to our athletes to use our program is at the end of your season, your focus should be very general means, rebuilding your body. Okay, we're not worried about sport-specific stuff yet. So we recommend 3 days a week. But as you get closer to your season, that ratio changes. You should cut down the type of training that you're doing with us and ramp up any what we call SPP work, which is kind of a bastardization of the term, but specialized physical preparedness, which would be anything technical, tactical associated with the sport. So this would be like where their hitting lessons and pitching lessons and those things come in. So we teach our clients how to use our program through that lens, where they come 3 days a week in the off season, 2 days a week in the in season. And then there's an option to downgrade to 1 day a week if they get in like a really highly competitive time. Our prices range from about $45 to $85 a week on the athlete side, whether you're doing a 13-week commitment or you're doing a 52-week commitment. I haven't looked at our menus in quite some time, so I couldn't rattle off our price sheet, right now. I had to get somebody to send that over to me yesterday when I was communicating with you. And then on the adult side, on the small group, it's like $84 to $124 a week. And in the adult side, what they get is our main core offer that we really try to sell to everybody is what we call a 2+2 program. It's 2 days a week of small group individualized personal training. And then we give them 2 days a week of a large group metabolic conditioning with it. So it's your strength, it's your conditioning. Basically, we do free nutrition coaching for everybody in our building. We started doing that after COVID. And it was also a way for me to stay connected to the clientele. But I've got a coach that is very passionate about that, we've really been training her, onboarding her. She'll eventually take that over.
And so on the athlete side, it's about 25 to $30 a session. That's for group, right? That's
Yeah. Groups of like 12 to 15. So with athletes, we train groups of about 12 to 15.
It's a great hourly rate. That's awesome.
Yeah. So what a lot of people charge for like a 1 to 6, but we've just built kind of the capacity to do that. A lot of times we'll have, our coaches we call it all in coaching. So like if a group is a little bit big and the coach needs a little bit of help, like our coaches will hang around and help without trying to, get another hour worth of pay. It's just how we do things. And then when we have interns, that solves that problem. We can just attach more interns to the larger groups.
So how many coaches and interns will be on the floor if you got 15 kids training?
If we have 15, it'll be 2, or a coach and an intern, or 2 coaches.
Okay. And then on the adult side, it's is that a traditional like 6-to-1 for the strength-based stuff?
Yeah, but I mean, we have, we'll have 4 coaches working with 6 people in like 1 hour. So there's 24 people on that side of the room working with 4 coaches. And on the other side of the room, we might have a metabolic blast class going on too with, 15 people in that class.
Like similar to James, Mateo, I saw you looking confused, like where he's running 4 or 5 different sessions, 4 or 5 different cohorts of 6 people. So
yeah,
how big is the gym?
I got you.
About 5,600 square foot.
And you're able to run that many sessions in that little of a space?
Yeah, we crank, man. I mean, it's busy. I mean, I actually put a thing up on my store because I don't do a lot of the social media stuff, and I'm like, Luca's helping me there because he's so present on social media. But like, you just need to show behind the scenes more. And I showed the other day, like we have, high school kids preparing right here. We've got adults over here training, and then we've got 7 to 11-year-olds over here, and it's a completely packed house. We have some efficiency stuff to clean up, but the way we set the gym up to begin with has really helped with that. That was one of the things. I did a mentorship with Mike Boyle like really early 2000, and one of the better things I took away from that was how they set the facility up for optimal traffic flow. That's helped us a lot. Like just the way that the whole building is laid out lends itself well to, a lot of people moving around in there in a tight space.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Is it just packed with equipment? I'm trying to get a good photo. I'm looking through here to try and get a good photo. It doesn't look like you got like 100 racks or something.
Yeah, we've got 7 racks that go across a back wall. All racks are self-contained, so they've got their own kettlebells, jungle gym, whatever else we're going to need, like a rear foot elevated split squat stand, a Swiss ball. So like everything is right there. Then we've got, 2 sets of dumbbells on one end, right? So if you're middle over this way, you're using those dumbbells. If you're middle over this way, you're using those dumbbells. And we've got 2 functional trainers that are in there that people use as well. Plus, we've also put Ancor attachments pretty much at every rack just to minimize the people having to use the other cable pulleys. We're actually talking about just getting rid of more equipment and just down to the essentials. But we're about to add like VBT devices to all of our racks too. And so, yeah, we're trying to clean things up, be a little bit efficient, smaller exercise pool, those type of things.
Before we started recording, I know we were talking about, you're the ops guy, you're talking about space efficiency, but kind of listen to your story. You do also kind of sound like the sales guy, especially the PowerPoint story. You've been reading Brian Tracy since you were 19, going to seminars, and you just rattled off a lot of different services. You have the kids stuff going on, the adults, a metabolic blast class. So I guess, what is your approach to the sales process at the gym? What do you look for when you're hiring a sales rep? Because I know you've removed yourself from the business now. And then what are you teaching your novice salespeople? What are the things you're teaching them?
Well, here's what I would tell you first is that I'm an accidental ops person. Like I would not tell you that that's kind of what I'm naturally skewed for. I am probably more, I've never compared this like a sales profile, but if you look at a disc profile, I'm really high D, really high I, very low S, very low C. So I try to surround myself with people that are S's and C's. But you're right, sales does feel more natural to me. I mean, I was reading Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar stuff like real early on. And I come from that world of like, you tour somebody around a gym and then you sit down and you sell. So to this day, that's actually still how we do things. We do sit down sales meetings, and we used to do them every day of the week. Now I do still sit in that seat 1 to 2 days a week so I can stay attached to new people that are coming in the program. As far as how we sell outside of that is my whole team has been trained to sell. Now, one guy specifically is accountable. And his incentive system and everything is set up around that. But that duty is shared by all. They all know how to manage lists. They all know how to market. And it's just, we kind of take that all-in approach. With my leadership team, we have a team of 8. Leadership team is 4. So with the leadership team, that's their focus. In regards to the mechanics of how we sell, it's very traditional, right? Somebody comes in, we walk them around the gym a little bit. I jokingly say sometimes they don't even make it around the gym. They just end up in my office, and next thing you know, they're signing paperwork. We sit down, we build rapport, we get clear on their questions, what their problems are. We're going to repeat those back to them. Then we're going to show them how our system solves that program. And then we're going to do some type of prescriptive close at the end. It's an A, it's a B, which the A is always a 12-month offer. The B is always a 13-week offer. With all of my integrity, I just think that's the best way we can help anybody that comes in our building. So if you want to go deeper into those details, I'm happy to, but that's kind of the 10,000-foot overview. We are moving now because I am at a point where I think the next level of things that I want to do, I do have to even remove myself from those sales seats. It's about 2 hours a week worth of time right now, so it's not a time suck. It's just I don't think it's the best thing. Because the longer we do this, I won't ever create another strategy that kind of pulls me out of it. So we're investing in force plates and some other things, and we're going to do more of a performance assessment on that end with athletes. That way we can say, hey, look, this is where you are based on normative data. This is where you want to go. This is how we'll close the gap. Whether you're a trained salesperson or not, that's a pretty easy thing to talk a client through. And then on the adult side, we'll do the same thing. We'll still use force plates, but we'll include an in-body and some other things. It's what a lot of people do these days anyway. They throw them on an in-body, they sit them down, they sell, or they take them through a workout, put them on an in-body, sit down and sell. I've always been resistant to doing things that way. I just felt like I was better qualified to explain my program in the environment and way that we did it. But I see us moving in that direction when I'm completely out of that seat.
Yeah, no, it's certainly becoming the standard more and more I'm seeing. And then I guess if a gym owner comes to you and they're like looking for advice and they're struggling with sales, like what are the most common issues you're seeing there, and how do you help them through that?
One, I just don't think they know anything about sales. I think that they have an unhealthy mentality around sales. But what I talk to guys a lot about, like, first of all, you have to learn the mechanics of sales. You have to be good at it. And there's opportunity to practice all the time. But the two things that I talk about that are most powerful in sales that nobody ever talks about is if you actually live your product, if you're a walking example of what you tell other people to do, you can leverage that. We all know that the guy who's like, he really doesn't know a lot about training, but he looks like $1 million and he always has a full book. Like, everybody knows somebody like that. But the more intellectual you are, and our world is full of a lot of intellectuals, they don't seem to understand that. It's like nobody cares about your degree. They care way more about how you look. And if you can leverage that and be a walking example, sales will be a lot easier. The other thing is that certainty sells. So if you actually know your stuff, you're going to be able to sell a lot easier. When I talk to a parent, I know for a fact that I know what's best for their athlete, or I know what's best for them more than they do. I have more information and a better understanding of those things. And that helps me sell because I'm not trying to talk you into something I don't believe in. I know what I know. And, I have enough evidence now that what we do really works, and I can leverage those in a sales situation.
I do think there's a balance there because, yes, I hear what you're saying about conviction, but when there are trainers who know a lot about training and programming, you can get kind of caught in that over explaining when you're sitting down for someone and bogging them down in the details. So there is an art to that as well that I think probably just comes with experience.
It does. And I think also looking at the psychographics of your town, I think gives you, because I disagree that it's always a bad idea to use like industry jargon and over explain. I live in a town where there's more rocket scientists per capita than anywhere else in the entire United States. There are more engineers that live here than you can imagine. So some of the nerdier details about things, I found our community actually really appreciates. On the other side of that is if you're going to meet with 3 or 4 other gyms, the one thing I know for sure is when you leave out of my office, you will know that I have a different level of understanding of this stuff than the average person that you're going to meet at a gym. And that's not to be negative or disparaging. It's just, I just know that's true. I think we got to give people credit that they're a little smarter than we think they are sometimes.
Totally fair counterpoint.
Yeah.
Is this Boeing? You got some, like, is that the
we're a
out there?
microcosm of Washington, D.C. So Boeing, Raytheon, like all the big players, they're here. Like their southern headquarters is here. Redstone Arsenal is one of the biggest military bases. The Patriot missile program is housed here. NASA is here. We have more FBI presence here now than in Quantico. Yeah, we won the Space Force contract, but apparently they gave it back to Colorado Springs. So we are a microcosm of Washington, D.C.
I like to research the town the gyms are in. I made the mistake of looking at the Madison, Alabama real estate market. Like, this is what $1 million gets you. You get a brand new construction castle.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't even get a starter home here for $1 million. This is crazy.
4 years ago, it would have been double that. So, I mean, it's wild what's happened to our real estate market.
This is this one they haven't built it yet, but you get a nice little detached garage and they give you a little basketball court and fire pit to go with it.
I like it.
It's good living out in Madison, Alabama.
It really is. This is also I think Forbes ranked us the number 1 or number 3 place to start a small business, just because the income per capita is very high. At one point, we were number 1. Atlanta was number 2 to us in the Southeast. A lot of educated people, really good schools. Yeah, and we are the shining star of Alabama. We are not, what a lot of people think. And I think it has a lot to do with, we have people from all over that live here.
We went out to meet with like the Iron Tribe guys back in the day when they're in Birmingham, and we were like blown away how much we liked Birmingham and how cool of a city it is. So I would imagine
Huntsville's better.
Yeah, I would opt in. I want to check it out. So you've been open for a while now. Sounds like business is booming. You got a good infrastructure. You said you can leave the gym for 90 days and nothing will be broken when you get back.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
So, how are you thinking about expansion? Like, what's next?
I mean, if you had asked me 8 months ago, I would have told you for sure we're doing a different location. I was looking at buying a building in a city nearby. And I still think that may happen, where we may put one in this one city and then actually put one in Huntsville too. My main goal is to get some real estate for this location. That's just kind of where I'm at right now. And my goals is I want to try to find us the right deal to where I can invest in it and kind of be the anchor tenant amongst a property. So that's where I'm at now. As of Monday, we were around 312 clients. If we stay with a single location, we'll have to drive that up somewhere around 450-ish. But if we do multiple locations, this one's probably fine right where it is. The past 2 years has been very much about driving revenue to provide better jobs. That's something that I'm really focused on. I got a buddy of mine he's opened like 8 gyms this year or 7. Just our conversations have been really empowering, and that way talking about providing the best jobs in the fitness industry. And that's what we're focused on. And like my leadership team, they've got, a retirement match. They've got health insurance options. They're on a salary. So I want to just keep driving revenue to where we can provide great jobs, not only, pay and benefit, but jobs that people love to be a part of and that they're proud to be a part of. I want to create a brand that people are proud to work at. When they go to events and conferences or perform better, they value the BCI logo.
So we met you through Meathead Mark, who's running, I think, probably the best real estate sports performance play. Is that kind of who you're trying to copy?
Actually, I was talking about, so me and Mark connected over the past year, but we hadn't talked in quite some time. And I was watching a presentation that he did, and this might have been 2 years ago. And I was like, dude, I'm so impressed with what you built. And I actually knew his buddy Connor a little bit better than I knew Mark, because me and Connor were actually in a mastermind together early on. But the guy that I was talking about is actually a guy named Devin Gage. Devin's in the Philly area, and he's all in that crew. Mark,
we know him. We know him as well. Friend of the pod. His Florida location is like not even a mile from our house.
Oh, yeah, okay. We walked to his Florida location
And who did he bought that from? Somebody else that we know. It might have been Joe Carabasi, maybe. I don't know if you guys know Joe.
It was like an accountant or someone turned him on to it or something. I don't remember, but
no, but
Devin that guy sold it to another guy, and they bought it from that guy. But yes, the guy you're talking about owned it at one point.
Like Devin, Mark, and Connor are three dudes I'm just really, really impressed with. As well as Joe and Dan, the Varsity House guys. I think they're really impressive as well. It's cool because we all talk and support each other, and man, that's not normal in a lot of industries, at least, my experience. So it's nice, man. And those guys are just savages at what they do.
Well, how are you thinking? Because we talked to Joe, like, how are you thinking about the multi-location approach and taking over Northern Alabama and the world versus maybe having one Citadel where you own the real estate into the mega facility that everyone comes to you? How do you kind of think about those things?
What I think about is how I want it to impact my life. That's what I think about. And doing multiple gyms would be a much bigger stressor for me, I believe. So I have the wisdom of knowing what I missed with my oldest kid. So I have a 10-year-old daughter now that I really try not to miss anything. And I'm happy with the way my life is set up. But I want to make sure that I'm, taking care of them. And I have 3 grandkids. So I've got a whole family I got to take care of. So we've got to keep growing. It's just, how do we grow and maintain the same fulfillment in life? I'm out of the hustle grind stage, and I have zero interest in doing that. So right now, my mind is to continue to grow this one location because the team that I have is incredible. And I think that is my biggest concern with multiple locations. Now, I have some unique connections to the industry that I think could make that work. I'm plugged into a lot of guys who would certainly refer coaches my way, and I just know a lot of people. But right now, it's really how would that affect my life? And I like the idea of one facility right now, and then this other program that Luca and I started kind of as being the second engine that powers along some of the future things I'm going to do.
I love your Instagram bio, or it's just, I run the best gym in Alabama. It's so clear, and I would just keep running with that. That It seems like you got a good thing going, and you got a good team in place.
Yeah.
It seems like you got a good partner in your next endeavor. So let's talk about that a little bit. What are you doing with Luca?
Yeah. So both me and Luca met each other 14, 15 years ago, just going to events. Right. So I was like, okay, this is my type of guy. We're into a lot of the same stuff. We both have kind of rough backgrounds from, being younger, and we kind of bonded behind a lot of that too. He's been doing business coaching for 12 years, something like that. I even used to go to some of their events, like the PAC events back in the day. Actually, I don't know if it was called the PAC then. I don't know. But I started doing consulting work about 6 years ago, just kind of paying forward what I was learning, working with a small group of people. But I was kind of doing it. We're doing it very differently. I was taking more of a operations lens and personal leadership. The thing that's helped me a lot in my life is being able to recognize when I'm out of integrity. And I think a lot of gym owners struggle to move their business forward because they don't recognize the areas of life they're out of integrity. For example, they tell their clients to be consistent in certain behaviors, but they lack consistency in the behaviors that'll grow their gym, right? So I took very much a personal leadership approach and operations focus. Through me and him, we've just been great friends for years. And just through talking more and more about it, we were like, I think there's a real opportunity here, because what me and him have talked about is that everybody's so focused on the skills of marketing and sales and scale. And I love those things for sure. But there's nobody out there talking about the importance of being a really good coach and how that impacts the stability of your business, attracting good coaches, the certainty that it creates to help you sell your program. So just through us talking about this, it's like, man, we need to start talking about what's worked for us, a coaching first approach, and then eventually combined with operational excellence. So as we just started talking about it more, it was like, man, let's do it, man. Let's take a swing at it. We know a lot of the guys that are in this space already, and we're friends with a lot of them. We think they're great dudes. We also think that we've got a voice and a message that would be beneficial to people to hear. And, we're going to do the thing. So that's one thing both me and him are committed to is doing a great job in this space and, building a real business around this, staying true to who we are. We just want to attract people that resonates with.
What trends do you see on the horizon, especially like when it comes to youth training, youth athletics, as it's becoming more and more, you're seeing more and more gyms specialize in this. Additionally, recovery is a big thing that's going on, especially even with pros, like what Tom Brady has his whole recovery thing. So like, I guess, how are you thinking about that? Are you going to put cold plunges in this new facility you're going to open? Like, how do you think about trends? How do you think about the future?
Well, ironically, I just got a blue cube sent to me. A buddy of mine's connected with them, and they're sending me a blue cube to my house. But there will be no cold tubs in any future gyms. I would just start a separate business if I wanted to do that stuff. So I love the idea of recovery businesses. I don't know if there's one here in our town that does pretty good. I don't know if our market is ready for a lot of that, but I really do like it, and I see what you see. It's becoming a big industry, and I think it's going to continue to grow. I've got a sauna at home. I'll have a blue cube at home. I've got red lights, so I'm into that stuff. I just don't know if I want to build a business around it yet. In regards to what I see on the athlete side is I'm seeing people moving way more towards data collection. Specifically, I'm not so sure everybody's using their data, but it looks cool to collect it. And I think we're going to continue to see a lot of that for sure. I do think that one of the things I'm seeing that's a little concerning for me, and it comes from my own experiences, is a lot of kids these days are using SARMs. They're going to the big gyms by themselves to work out because they're following a lot of influencers. I had great experiences like that when I was young, although it's probably the reason I have titanium hips as a 45-year-old. I was very strong. I met some grown men at a gym that, were impressed with that. And they exposed me to a lot of really good training and some not really good training. So I think I'm seeing that. And that is a little bit of a concern for me right now. I think kids don't understand the difference between exercises and adaptations. They just want to get jacked, and they don't really understand the competing adaptations that exist. And if they're training in a certain way, how that could actually impact the direction that they want their body and, ability to go.
I mean, isn't that what everybody wants in life? To just get jacked?
Get jacked. Yeah. I just want to move better. I'm out of the get jacked phase. Like, just with all my injuries, I want to go to move without pain, which is, that's good. That's a win for me.
It's the circle of life,
Indeed.
You spend the beginning trying to get jacked, and then in the tail end just trying to get pain free.
Yeah, I'm already looking at stem cells in Colombia, and so it's like rebuild the body now that you've got the time and means. I mean, that's where I'm at.
So, if you get a young whippersnapper in the game coming to you for advice on how do I become successful in the fitness industry, I want to become like you, Andy. What are you telling them to do?
I mean, the first thing I would tell you is you got to know actually what you really want. I think, it's such simple advice, but I think a lot of people skip it. I think they see other people, like maybe they want to be like me or be like somebody else, so they go try to replicate that. I think that's a mistake. I think you got to know what you want and really why you want it. I think that's the first step. The next thing is finding somebody, like an example, right? And then figuring out what's worked for them. I know what's worked for me is just a compulsion to study and learn, and then also focusing on being a very good coach first. So I would tell them, don't skip that process, because if there's any leverage that I've created for myself in this industry, it's around me being a coach, not a business owner. I'm a lot more respected as a coach probably than a business owner. And I think that is, that should be guys' focus. And then I think you need to pay people for their time, pay people for their resources, hire coaches, hire mentors, join programs. Like, I've spent an absurd amount of money on stuff like that. And what's crazy is every really good business owner that I know has too. I don't think I know anybody in our space that hasn't really invested a lot in their own education, both on the training and business side. If you do that, you're going to be successful. The other thing is managing the other areas of your life. And I think this isn't talked about enough, but I think your family and your relationships, your own personal health and your training, those things often get put on the back burner in pursuit of building a business. And if you're not managing the relationships in your life and your own personal health and fitness, that's going to pull away at your ability to build a business. I've often said there's not a lot of business problems. There's life problems that make it hard to build a business and deal with the stress of moving it forward.
I think that's the ending point right there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Sweet. Yeah.
So if people want to follow along your journey, where are you sending them?
Instagram right now. I mean, that's normally I would just give out my email address, because you won't find me much on Instagram and Facebook. But because of the Built to Last program, me and Luca have done what we would tell other people to do and get very clear on our roles. So he is the marketing director, and he has advised me that I need to actually create content. So Instagram is the place that you can find me sharing a little bit of what I think. It's Andy McCloy, ANDYMCCLOY _ B as in boy, C as in cat, I as in Indian. So BCI, you can find me there. I am active.
Yeah, I see that. You post from Halloween already. That's good.
I'm trying.
So Teo, where do people go if they want to find us?
I mean, you could go to Instagram, but honestly, I prefer you just go to usekilo.com and book a call just to see, what's going on over here. We can help you maybe get to where Andy's at one day. Maybe we can help you with your business, with your software needs, your website.
Can't help
needs.
you with your coaching or your training.
I cannot help you with your coaching.
We can't
Don't
get you
ask
jacked.
me about that.
Yeah,
Can't get you jacked. I'm trying to
pain
maybe
free.
No. Yeah.
It's a different kind of pain that we solve.
Yeah.
I've heard you guys are good at what you do. So that's for sure.
Oh, there you
If
go.
you
There's
have,
the
if you have
endorsement.
some
There's a testimonial.
digital, if you have some digital aches and pains, we can help you get pain free.
Awesome.
And if you enjoyed this, guys, please like it, send it to a gym owner in need, because finding guys like Andy, getting them on the schedule, it's tough to do every week. And we do it for you because we think it is helpful to bring the smartest and best voices in the industry together and give you their honest opinion on how to run a successful gym. So until next week, we love you.